So, good afternoon. I am Joan Benz. I'm the program coordinator for Sharp Again. And would like to introduce Carol Karp, our executive director. She's going to give us a short program update.
Welcome, everyone. We're very excited about this webinar, but I want to tell you a little bit about Sharp Again first. Here at Sharp Again, our mission is to educate and empower people to take charge of their cognitive health. We do that through many ways, including webinars like this one, in-person presentations, articles, resources, and a very informative website. But by far, the most impactful offering is our small group coaching program. This program offers live education and support facilitated by a certified health coach. These groups meet via Zoom once a week for 6 weeks. During this program, we focus on 4 lifestyle areas which we know greatly affect cognition and which you have control over: stress, sleep, nutrition, and exercise. The cost of the program is $450, but through the generosity of our donors, it's been reduced to $99. The next program begins on Tuesday, October 22nd at 10 a.m. and registration is open. So if you're beginning to notice some memory impairment, or if you want to learn how to keep your brain sharp, this program is an excellent place to start. To learn more about the program, email us at info@sharpagain.org. Our next webinar is Waiting to Exhale. Please join us on Wednesday, September 18th at noon for an in-depth presentation on how intentional, mindful breathing can offer significant health benefits. On Tuesday, October 1st, we have another free webinar, Age Well with a Sharper Brain. Join us to learn about the identifiable causes of memory loss and how you can address them to prevent and slow their effect. You'll receive all this program information in an email tomorrow, along with the recording link and resources that are referenced in today's presentation. During the presentation today, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat box and we'll answer them during the Q&A at the end of the presentation. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our speakers today, Kelyssa Hall and Chelsea Long. Kelyssa and Chelsea are exercise physiologists on the sports rehabilitation and performance team at the Hospital for Special Surgery. Kelyssa graduated from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign with a bachelor's degree in kinesiology. She strives to empower people to live their best life by working with them to integrate physical activity and healthy habits into their daily routines while focusing on functional movement, balance, strength, and endurance. Chelsea graduated with a bachelor's degree in exercise science from Georgian Court and received a master's degree in exercise physiology from Adelphi University. Chelsea's primary goal is to get her clients back to what they love to do, whether that's competitive sports, recreational sports, or weekend adventures, 5Ks, or just being able to get down on the floor and play with the grandkids. Welcome to both of you, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much, Carol, for the introduction. And thank you all for having us here today to talk about exercise to maximize brain health. We are very happy to be here, so thank you again. Chelsea and I have no financial relationships to disclose at this time. So the objectives for this talk, we're going to discuss the current research about brain health and exercise, including what we mean when we say brain health and the unique strategies that can help make change. I'm going to discuss where to start and what are the important considerations for assessment while diving into a little bit about the performance pyramid and how to determine your own foundation of physiological function. I'm going to then cover the guidelines for exercise and how to just rate your own exertion levels. Then we're going to have Chelsea take over and talk to us more specific exercise called HIIT training, high intensity interval training that is, and how to understand and progress intensity measures. And then she's going to give some examples of HIIT training program and exercises that you can take along with you. And then she's going to share some of the highlights of exercise gamification and how that can be helpful in maximizing brain health. So I think one of the most important things to remember from this presentation is to always consult with your doctor when starting a new exercise program. So what does the research and the experts say about brain health and exercise? Luckily, researchers, clinicians, and scientists have been studying this topic for years. So there's a lot of reliable information out there about this topic. Our government programs invest a lot of money to keep information up to date so that recommendations are appropriate and safe. The Center for Disease Control stance is that regular physical activity can reduce your risk of cognitive decline, including dementia. The National Institute of Health states that physical activity can improve mood, focus, memory, reduce stress and anxiety, and improve that emotional balance overall. This particular study in the Journal of American College of Sports Medicine about brain health and exercise in older adults by Gregory et al. Determines that physical activity can improve cognitive function, preserve functional independence and quality of life, which is really what it's all about, right? And then reduce that risk of cognitive decline. So there's tons of research out there. There's tons of resources all over the internet and all of these trusted resources. So take it upon yourself to really investigate brain health further. And this just kind of gives you a little bit of a starting point to kind of investigate. All right, so what do we mean when we say brain health? Brain health refers to how well our brain functions across several different areas. It's like an electrical switchboard that is really responsible for everything our bodies need, want, and do. There are synapses firing, impulses moving around the body, and we're talking about overall cognition and learning abilities, our ability to focus on tasks and remain focused on those tasks. We're talking about memory, our ability to recall information, our social emotional state of mind, or how our mood changes and how we can control it or how we can't control it. Brain health includes our behavioral factors, such as how we interact with others and enjoy balance of our lives. How much sleep we get has a direct effect on our brain health. We all know that 2 hours of sleep, we're not too clear. Brain health includes the ability to manage and process our sensory input, the sensory input that we get from the world. How do we process that and how do we react to it? And then, of course, brain health is in charge of our motor control. How we move our bodies is dictated by the actions of the brain. So we as exercise physiologists, we look at this motor control side of things, but the brain is still in charge of all of that. So how can we think about that when we think about exercise? Now, in order to maximize our brain health, the research has demonstrated that there are unique ways that have been shown to help. So in those studies, the study that I quoted earlier, aerobic training is helpful in that it increases the heart rate and blood flow with oxygen to the brain. So they talk about that in the methods that they use in the studies. They use aerobic exercise to kind of test those measures. Resistance training helps build muscle mass to help support the joints as the body moves through space. So we're going to talk about how that brain health can be improved by resistance training. And then cognitive challenges while exercising, such as counting backwards, counting by twos, or calling out the names of the states while you're exercising is going to add another layer of difficulty to an otherwise easier exercise. So something that's easy, if you start counting by twos or start counting back from 100, that's going to make it a lot harder. So your brain has to work harder. And then multitasking would be creating multiple challenges to be completed at once, right? So if you're working on something and you have a screen up in front of you guiding you, you're multitasking, interacting dual task activities of working with a screen and then moving your body at the same time. So to highlight these strategies further, I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about a case study involving a 65-year-old woman who fell in her bathroom and hit her head in the bathroom sink, resulting in a massive brainstem contusion. So I've been working with her about 20 years. Her injuries left her with almost no short-term memory. So when she had the brainstem contusion, she wasn't able to just recall any short-term memory. So after about every 2 minutes, she would have already forgotten what was going on, what she was doing, why she was doing it. So it was almost like a reset. Every 2 minutes, she had to be reminded, okay, this is why we're doing things. This is what we're doing. So how did I get her to the point where she actually remembered me and remembered what we were doing and why she had to go there 5 days a week? So for exercise, I mean, we just kind of use these strategies that we're going to talk about today. So aerobic exercise, I got her on the recumbent bike to get her heart rate up, to increase the blood flow and oxygen to her brain, thus increasing those synapses and all that electrical activity in the brain. And while she was on that bike, I was asking her questions about her morning. or about what she was doing when she was growing up. Like, where did you go to school? Making her recall information that would be in her long-term memory. But because all those synapses were going on in her brain, she was actually starting to be able to answer those questions, like what she did do that morning. So that she started remembering the bike and the lights and the time clock, and then focusing on the numbers. And that started to kind of build new memories for her, which was short-term memory that eventually turned into long-term memory for her. I would make her count for me out loud, sometimes backwards, and all of this stimulation over time started building more memories where she actually remembered our sessions and remembered me and was able to communicate better with her family and friends, looked forward to coming in. We focused on resistance training to help strengthen her arms and legs and core and trunk muscles to support her movement patterns. Using the cognitive challenges and multitask interventions allowed her to improve and maximize her own brain health, even after such a traumatic injury to the brain itself. So it's actually one of my most treasured clients. She's worked so hard in her life, and she's just the epitome of demonstration of how brain health activities and kind of taking some of these concepts and applying it to your exercise can have a huge impact. Okay. All right. So from there, so what do? We know we need to prioritize exercise, but where do we start? Do we just head to the gym, get on the machines and go? The key to an effective exercise training program is having a clear understanding of the following: your current physical ability and function, that's your point A, your goals and needs, that's your point B, and then that evidence-driven plan of how to get from point A to point B, right? So we're going to take your previous medical history, your previous surgical history, your goals, either long-term or short-term, your exercise history, what has worked, what hasn't worked in the past. We're going to take all those things and funnel through to kind of determine what your body needs the most from your exercise routine. And that's what the assessment is. And so now the brain is kind of like that puppeteer who has a hand in everything your body does. So when we assess the body, we're always assessing the brain's function as well. The performance team here at HSS has created this performance pyramid to provide a lens through which information is collected, interpreted, and organized in order to build an effective exercise program. The template takes into account adaptation and allows for progressions to be made based on your functional capacity. So this is all about you. The key concept to understand here is that movement, functional tasks, and even our little sport-specific tasks up at the top there require an underlying foundation of those basic human functions, such as your posture alignment, your mobility, that's your flexibility of the joints, your range of motion, your strength, your cardiovascular fitness, and those body comp and lifestyle factors. It's also important to mention that the education on the whys is important so that you understand the progression of what you're doing. If you understand why you're doing something, you're going to be more likely to adhere to that program. And that's what we want, adherence, so that we can reach those goals. So then the assessment process helps us build your own personal pyramid, looking at your own body and figuring out your foundation of those physiological functions. Ultimately, again, controlled by our brain. So we break the foundation up into the separate pieces and dig for information about you. For mobility, we're asking ourselves, are your shoulders rounded, or is one shoulder sitting higher than the other? Oh, sorry, this is posture. Is your head forward? Are your feet turned out? Does your trunk lean forward or to the front or to the back or to the side? What does that posture look like when you look at yourself in the mirror? And for mobility, how is your mobility? How much are your muscles tight when you move throughout the day? Are you able to get down on the floor and then get back up easily again? Or is that really hard for the muscles to move through those ranges of motion? Can you put your socks and shoes on without difficulty? Crossing that leg over and get those shoes and socks on takes some mobility in the hip. Are you able to reach behind your back comfortably to put on that jacket? And how strong are you? Do your legs feel weak? Do your legs feel weak going up and down stairs? Do your arms feel weak carrying things? Do you have trouble opening jars? Is going up and down the stairs hard because of strength, not so much mobility? And those are the important questions that you're going to ask yourself about how strong your body is. And then your endurance. Does completing those daily activities leave you drained? Do you get breathless easily? Are you able to walk long distances without stopping? Or do you have to take breaks when you exercise? And then those body comp and lifestyle factors, how much sleep do you get? Are you getting 3 healthy meals per day full of whole grains, fruits, veggies, and protein? Do you drink plenty of water? Are you experiencing excess stress? All those factors go into those body comp and lifestyle factors, which have a huge effect on what we do. So we're going to actually go through a little bit of investigating right now with a little bit of participation. If you're not able to do these during the webinar, don't worry. We're going to provide these after so that you can do it on your own with your own fitness professional or by yourself, so you can kind of go through these. But I want you to think about what your personal pyramid may be as you complete these exercises. So we're going to look at mobility first. We're going to look at the mobility of the exercises on the back side of your body. So as you sit there in your chair, you can see she's scooted forward in the seat. So she's sitting right kind of in the front of the chair. If you're in a rolling chair, don't scoot to the front of the seat. Wait till you have a more solid chair. You can try this later. But she's just going to look and see how tight the legs are on the back side of her body, just looking at the posterior chain muscles, the muscles that run along the back side. With her hands on the front of her thigh, she leans forward, reaches for her foot, holds that position, and then takes that feedback and says, what am I feeling in this moment, right? Are you feeling tightness in the lower part of the leg? Are you feeling tightness in the back of the upper thigh? Is your back tight? And that's the information you want to fill in for that personal pyramid to give you information about the mobility in your posterior chain. Okay. All right. So for next one, shoulder mobility. And you can do this with a towel, or you can just reach your arm behind your back and over. You don't have to have a towel. But what we're looking at is the mobility of the shoulders to move through external and internal rotation, right? So are we able to reach behind our back to put that coat on? So having that towel with the top arm and then grabbing it from the bottom allows you to move yourself through those ranges of motion so that you can see, yeah, my left arm is really tight here in the front of the shoulder when my arm is behind my back. And over on this side, I'm really tight over here when that arm is overhead. And then when you switch, you may see that it may seem totally different on the other side. So remarking the symmetries and asymmetries or imbalances between the right and the left side is also something you want to take note of. All right. Okay. Moving on to number 3, our chair squat. The sit to stand is one of our most functional exercises. It's a really good indication of lower body strength. You're going to stand in front of a chair, and definitely not a rolling chair. Start with your feet hip width apart, and then you just sit back to that chair and then stand back up. Okay. And you can do this, say, maybe 10 times in a row. That'll give you a lot of information about where you're feeling the work. Do you feel the work in those hips and glutes, or are you feeling it in your knees? If your knees are shooting too far forward, then they're probably taking on a lot of that load. So you want to write that down and talk to your fitness professional. Yeah, my knees really hurt when I do a sit to stand pattern, because that can help guide the exercises that they would choose for you to do sit to stand challenges, which is a very functional movement. Okay. You can also notice that her back is really straight, her head is up, her chest is lifted as she sits back into those hips. Okay. All right. So this one, we're going to do a single leg balance. For this one, I'm going to have you all try this. If you can, I'm going to count you all out. I'm going to have everybody stand up and get their weight on one leg. And I'm going to count to 30. I want you to lift your leg up and see how long you can stand on that right leg for up to 30 seconds. And just remember that number. And then we're going to do it on the left side. Okay. So everybody's standing on their 2 feet. You're going to lift your right leg up off the ground, standing on your left, starting now. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. All right, so who made it to 30 seconds? Hopefully all of you did. And if you didn't, that's okay. Even if you only made it to 1 second or 0, write that down and say, on my left leg, I was able to stand for 5 seconds. All right, so now let's try the other side. You're gonna lift your left leg and you're gonna lift you're standing on your right leg this time. Okay, ready? And go. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. Nice job, everybody. So hopefully you all stood on both legs for 30 seconds, no problem. But if you didn't, that's okay. So were the two sides different? Was one side only 2 seconds and the other side was 30? That's information. And that's information we want to track. And I'll show you, we have a tracker in just a minute where you can write down all those notes later as well. But this is an important exercise. You know, being able to support your body weight on one leg is important because when you're going up and down stairs and when you're walking, you're transferring all your weight onto one leg. So being able to do it is really important and really functional. And then to piggyback off of this one, we have a 2-minute step in place test. We're just for time's sake, we're not going to run through this one, but I wanted to throw this one in there for you guys to all test later. You're just going to march in place, just like the pictures show. Start a timer for 2 minutes. At the end of that 2 minutes, I want you to write down all that feedback that you're getting. Are you breathless? Were you even able to last for 2 minutes? What did that feel like? Was your posture all over the place? Was it painful in your low back? Any of that information will be important to kind of, again, pick the right exercises for your body. Okay, so now after we have a good idea of how our body moves and functions with regard to our foundation of posture, mobility, strength, cardiovascular fitness, lifestyle factors, we want to set some goals. Setting realistic and attainable short-term and long-term goals is going to set you up for success, right? So you may want to be able to play tennis again or lose weight or just be able to do activities of daily living that have gotten challenging. You may want to prevent injury or just get stronger for an upcoming surgery or get stronger after a surgery. Either way, we want to make sure that we're addressing any asymmetries or imbalances or malalignment to prepare the body to be able to support those brain health management goals. And those we're including are improving cognition, focus, mood, memory, and sleep, prioritizing maximizing brain activity, motor control, and synapses to avoid that kind of autopilot mode. Our brain likes to shift to autopilot if we let it. And then, of course, maintaining functional independence and quality of life, which is ultimately what we want. Okay, so here's the tracker. So you guys will also have this in a PDF with the exercises. So you have the pictures of the exercises. You can write the notes that you either wrote down today, or you can do it later today and make that your initial assessment. And then I want you to do them again in 6 weeks and see what has changed. Has anything changed? Have things gotten better? Have things gotten different? And what that different looks like for you. All right, so with all the information we have about you, we also need to make sure that we recognize the guidelines for what guidelines for exercise are. The ACSM, or American College of Sports Medicine, publishes each year. They base these recommendations on a lot of research that has been done over the years. And we're talking about the FIT principle, which is your frequency, that's how often, your intensity, which is how hard, your time, which is how long, and your modality, that's the type of exercise. And for each of these categories, we're going to include your aerobic training, resistance training, and flexibility training. And this is easy because the principles are easy to apply because it's based on a rate RPE scale, which is your rating of perceived exertion. We want to make sure that you are not overtrained. And don't worry, we're going to talk a little bit more about RPE in a minute. Okay. And this will also be in your PDF along with the slides. And just you're maybe asking, what about those of us who are over than 65? The physical activity guidelines for Americans from the Department of Health recommend that adults over 65 of age get at least 150 of moderate to 150 minutes of moderate or 75 minutes of vigorous, let me say that correctly, of aerobic exercise per week, in addition to the muscle and bone strengthening exercises of 2 days per week. And it just, in general, they're just basically talking about just understanding your own chronic conditions. You should determine your level of effort based on those conditions and just understand your own abilities and don't push yourself. Okay. All right, and so rating of perceived exertion, really briefly, this is just a table kind of talking about what you should feel like when we talk about rating our effort or our perceived exertion. And this kind of gives you a nice little summary of what that would look like, rating it on a 0, which you would say, I'm lying down, no effort at all, versus our level 10, which is maximal effort, gasping for air, no ability to speak, and unable to sustain this effort for very few seconds, okay? This is also going to be in that PDF, so don't worry about remembering all of this. And again, we're going to talk a lot more about RPE as Chelsea transitions. So Chelsea's going to talk, she's going to take over from now, and she's going to highlight a little more specific aerobic approach to exercise. So I just kind of peeled out this aerobic piece of the guidelines just to kind of highlight them as we kind of transfer this over to here to Chelsea, and she is going to take it away. All right, Chelsea, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing.
Thank you, Kelyssa. Oh. Promise I've done this before. Hold on. Why isn't it showing the regular share? Oh, here we go. Okay, are we good, Kelyssa? Okay, all right, so one slide forward. All right, so thank you, Kelyssa, and hopefully everybody got my kudos for performing all of your assessment exercises. Very well done, ladies. So let's look at the scoping review and what the research says about a specific style of training called HIIT and brain health. So HIIT is high intensity interval training. When people say HIIT, most people think of sprinting and high level activity exercises, but it really doesn't have to be. It's just an intensity level, and intensity is relative. So your level 10 of intensity may not be running a 10-second 100-meter sprint, but it might be walking up a hill that's pretty progressive, but not too big. That might be where your maximum level of effort is. So a meta review looked at all of the research that included HIIT training for the older population. And why did they do this? They wanted to make sure that HIIT training was feasible, safe, effective, and what types of exercises were effective and safe in the older population. They looked at people with neurocognitive decline, osteoarthritis, poor metabolic function or diabetes, and cardiac function. They worked through work intervals of 70 to 90% of their heart rate max. So if you take your heart rate either from your carotid or from your wrist or using your smartwatch, you looked at high intensity intervals that were up to 90% of the heart rate combined with low intensity intervals that were 40 to 70% of your heart rate max. So slower walking intervals. They looked at doing about 6 to 10 of these, which takes 20 to 30 minutes roughly, 2 to 4 times a week, around 16 to 18 weeks. So this style of exercise would fit into those 75 vigorous minutes of aerobic exercise that the ACSM suggests for the population. What did they find? All of these studies found that this type of exercise was well tolerated and feasible for the older population. And then some limitations that they have is that they just couldn't test every chronic disease. The control subjects, the number of people in the studies were small, and just limited amount of studies done. But every study that they found, everything was feasible, safe, and effective at improving brain health. So what are those high intensity and low intensity intervals? So your work period is your hard high intensity interval, and your rest period is slow, easy walking, conversational, breathing fine, kind of a recovery period. Every HIIT exercise is highly modifiable and relative to you. It's appropriate for any age. You just have to know what to do. And that's the hard part, right? The effectiveness of HIIT is effective in improving brain health. And then when you compare it to other forms of exercise, the intervals can improve brain health in a shorter amount of time. So as Kelyssa also mentioned, autopilot, long distance running, long distance cycling, staring at a screen for a long period of time puts us into a mode where our brain doesn't have to work. So if we take intervals, make them shorter, increase our blood oxygen levels, our brain oxygen levels, then we're able to improve brain health in a shorter amount of time, which is great because we all want to do things faster these days. HIIT and VO2 max. So VO2 max is your maximal oxygen uptake. For every breath you inhale, How many liters of oxygen are you inhaling over the course of that 30 seconds, over the course of a minute, of a day? More oxygen inhale is going to give you more oxygen to your brain. It's going to make it easier to pump the blood. It's going to give your muscles more oxygen, more ability to work, the ability to work longer and faster. Think about being able to react to a fall. Some of us are at a fall risk. If your muscles can react faster because they have a better oxygenated level, then you might be able to catch yourself from falling and reducing your risk of injury. More oxygen to the brain, improved brain activity, those synapses are firing faster. Our neuromotor control is moving around. We're more dexterous. We can handle more tasks at the same time and not have to limit ourselves to one thing at a time. And then brain retention, being able to remember all of the things that we want to remember. Some of the overall benefits of HIIT that don't include improving of cognition that help us with our daily life are cardiovascular health. Blood pressure and cholesterol are all things that affect our cardiovascular health. Muscle size and definition. It is true, the older we get, the less likely we are to change our muscle mass, but you can make it more favorable. Leaner body tissue, less fat, more muscle, improving cholesterol, blood sugar, insulin resistance for diabetes and metabolic dysfunction, metabolism, eating a little bit more, not having to eat smaller meals throughout the day, boosting aerobic capacity. So being able to walk and breathe and talk, like right now I'm 8 months pregnant, I'm talking, I'm getting a little out of breath, but improving your aerobic capacity not only helps increase oxygen supply to the brain, but it also helps with just your breathing rate throughout your activities of daily living. Cleaning the house, going for a walk, taking the dog, lower blood pressure, less pressure on all of the cardiovascular systems in general, weight loss, and then improving cognition. So HIIT sounds like a great way to exercise, in my opinion. And is it safe for everyone? So like we started with, medical clearance is suggested and required for most people over the age of 50, especially if you have a chronic condition or a diagnosis. So definitely check in with your doctor. Other safety considerations to look into are those with musculoskeletal limitations. So if you have a leg lengthening discrepancy, if you know you have cranky knees and hips, if you know your lower back hurts consistently every time you bend over, if that shoulder just doesn't move right, you want to check in with your physical trainer, your coach, your doctor. Make sure that you're choosing the correct exercises for those limitations and modifying them accordingly. If you know you're a fall risk, if you've had a certain amount of falls over the course of the last 2 years, make sure you have support, walking sticks, a banister on the stair, a dowel, or doing your exercises next to the bed. Appropriate exercise selection. If you've never gone for a run before, we're not going to start running today. There are lots of other things you want to get started doing to promote better movement patterns, to do new exercises. We're not just going to pick up a new thing and immediately go get it. And then proper form. So exercising with weights, with resistance, requires a little bit better form than just going for a walk. So making sure that you feel comfortable with that form. And if not, finding someone who can help you do that. So like we said, HIIT is about intensity. Right? So everything is relative. My level 10 intensity is going to be different than Kelyssa's. It's going to be different from everybody else's, whether that's power walking could be level 10 or sprinting could be level 10. So your high intensity interval should feel challenging, but it's important to start slow. So if your challenging is one time of up the staircase, that's your 10. Maybe we start with going up 2 stairs, coming down, going up 2 stairs, coming down, not taking the whole flight. So not everybody's 10 is the same level. And then remembering 0 is no effort. So you're just sitting on the couch or lying on the couch watching TV, not really making any changes metabolically. And 10 is your maximum exertion. So you want to start by alternating periods of high intensity and low intensity. If you can't get to a 10, either safely, you're fearful, or your 10 is way too far, it's too far in the future for you, then make your high intensity at 3. And maybe your level of RPE is just in the 0 to 3 category. Or you want to push it a little bit more and feel a little bit more challenged. Your level could go up to an 8. And then once you've been accustomed to the exercise, you understand what's supposed to be happening, you feel comfortable, then you can find your level 10. Some examples of that for a walking routine look like starting with a warm-up of an easy 3. And you're going to go for a minute, and then you're going to walk a little bit faster or uphill to increase the intensity to a 4 or a 5 for another 30 seconds. And then you're going to bring that rate back down, and you're going to come down to that recovery period for another minute. And you're going to alternate between levels of work and rest. And then you're going to continue that for 20 to 30 minutes. Some other ways of progressing your intensity levels, especially if you start to feel more confident and you're doing more things, more intervals, you can gradually exert more effort in the high intensity interval and keep the rest at the same level. So say your 3 is walking up a hill. I have a couple little depictions down here. Then you're going to work a lot harder going uphill, coast downhill, and then go back to your easy intensity. You want to also decrease the amount of time spent in the rest period. So if you're not ready to go straight to your 10 in your high intensity, if you're doing high intensity for 30 seconds, maybe your rest is not a minute. Maybe your rest is 30 seconds as well. That way you can recover faster and get back to your high intensity without pushing yourself too far. And then make sure you have enough time to recover before the next higher intensity interval. Otherwise, you're just high intensity the whole time, and now we're just doing long-term endurance instead of the actual movement from work to rest. You can do this on the elliptical. You can do it on a bike, whether you're outside, on a stationary bike, on a recumbent bike. All of the intervals can be done safely if you're not out there running. So we have 30 seconds of pedaling at maximum intensity. Remember, that could be a 5 or a 10. And then your recovery interval is going to be triple that, 90 seconds of light pedaling. This is a beginner. And you're going to repeat for 4 to 6 rounds. So some ways of progressing that: maximum intensity for 30, rest for 60. Other ways would be maximum intensity up a hill, rest for 90 at a flat pace. And you can do that by increasing resistance on the bike or the elliptical. Swimming. I'm not a swimmer. Lots of people love to swim. So you work intervals, 1 lap, high intensity. You're not going as fast as you can, but you're booking it. You're feeling like your heart rate's going up. You couldn't really talk to someone at the end of your interval. And then you take a nice, easy, slow lap. That could be freestyle. It could be a backstroke. It could be changing up the strokes in order to change up the intensity levels or the speed of motion. Or you can use paddles on your hands to make sure that the water is being pushed a little bit more fluidly. Walking. A lot of times walking, if we walk, we live in New York City, right? We walk a ton, but do we all walk up hills? Do we all walk up consistent hills, or is it just one hill? So taking your work interval of fast-paced walking, power walking, any type of speed walking, and you can take it to the park, take it to the hill. You can go up and down the same hill, or you can go in a loop of walking up and down different hills. So you're going to go 30 seconds of fast walking, 60 seconds of slower walking, 4 to 6 rounds. Running. Not everybody runs later in life, but you can, and you can also run on land or in the water. Aerobic walking, water running is also a great way to increase total body activity. And you are going to get your heart rate up. It's actually pretty difficult to run underwater. So you have your 30 seconds of sprinting, either in water or on land. And then your 60 seconds of walking would be that recovery. So this is one example where it's kind of 2 different activities, running versus walking, not just running and then jogging. So you're going to completely rest into that lower intensity level of walking instead of running. So some body weight exercises. So the great thing about the self-assessment that we went over is that all of those exercises can also be done with resistance or with weights. So those assessments work well because they correlate to strength training and building up our lean body mass. So you can take a selection of exercises and you can do each one for 30 seconds and then 10 seconds of rest in between. And you're going to go from standing on one leg with bicep curls, rest. And then you're going to go from squatting up and down as fast as you can for 30 seconds and then rest. Push-ups on the counter for 30 seconds and then rest. Doing a single leg toe tap around cones or tapping the different tiles in your kitchen and then rest. And then using either a dumbbell, a big soap container, or a can of beans to do a row for 30 seconds and then rest. So building up your strength is also a way to increase your cardiovascular system if you're used to doing nothing. And then that's just going to promote better brain health, better form, and better function of your muscles, so that all of your walking and running and cycling will actually be more efficient and you can do more work. Some other ways to increase the excitement and the fun of exercise, as not everybody enjoys it, is gamification, multitasking, being able to do multiple things at a time. So this is called exergaming for brain health. So you have a couple studies that looked at musculoskeletal plus neuromuscular systems in these studies. So they looked at patients with fibromyalgia, low back pain, rheumatoid arthritis, those that have had a stroke, and that included gait dysfunction, neural dysfunction, and motor control challenges, some patients with Parkinson's, and then even psych rehab. And they looked at the changes in their brain health and chronic pain measures after doing exergaming. So they're exercising using technology, lights, stickers, the Nintendo Wii, multitasking while they're exercising. And they found that by doing these exercises concurrently with the rehab program, they were able to increase their exercise capacity, their cardiovascular fitness, and lower limb strength all improved, helped increase mobility, which included balance and the reduced fear of falling. And just fear of falling can also put us in a negative or a depressed mood, and we choose not to do activities, which can impede your brain health. It was able to reduce the redundancy and overload of a traditional rehab training program and exercise program. So just think about your history with exercise. How many of us have started a program, loved it for 3 months, and then 6 months down the line thought it was boring and you were going to find something else? That type of feeling was reduced with exergaming. It was effective at reducing pain and increasing the health status of those patients, as well as increasing the intrinsic motivation for exercise. So these patients continued to choose exercise and exergaming over those that didn't get to use exergaming, and they fell off the wagon, didn't continue the program. And that's always something that's difficult to restart. So you want to get something that you like, that is consistent, that is showing you improvements, and that is safe and effective. And exergaming has been shown to do that. Some forms of exergaming. Whoops. Okay, so in the top right, we have, all right, bottom left, apologies for the sound, but this is a Meta VR where you put the eye gear on and you have two handles. This is a type of game where you're moving in space, so you're hitting the saucers that are flying at you. And what's really cool is that you're in different locations. Like this looks like it's out in New Zealand somewhere in the hills, but there's definitely different areas where you're doing these fun exercises. So you're getting to travel and exercise. And then the video on the top left, not quite sure why it's not playing, but these are called Blaze Pods. And you can set them in all different configurations. You can put them on the ground, on the wall, on a mirror. They have suction cups, and you can set them to light up at different intervals. You can touch them with your hands, touch them with your feet. If you have a walker or a cane, you can use them to help motivate you to move towards the different lights. And then like the game Nintendo Wii at the bottom right there, where you're running in place on this little balance board, or they have even strength training. You can use your iPad, and Apple Fitness has some apps. Exoskeletons, if you've ever been to a neuromuscular rehab before, they have pieces that you can attach to your body and helps you move and stay safe when you're exercising. Reward programs, leaderboards, Peloton does a great job of that. Color stickers or playing cards. So as Kelyssa was saying, if you're marching in place and I call out ace of spades and you have to go tap the ace of spades, or you can use a laser pointer to tap the ace of spades. Lots of different ways to create puzzles or multitask while you're exercising, which increases enjoyment, but also your brain activity. So now that you have all of these tools and all this information, now it's time to let the fun begin. And some final thoughts. There's always something you can do to keep moving, right? Don't let the fear of moving or your diagnosis or your mental state keep you from moving, because moving is what's going to help keep you positive and continue to move your brain health forward. Small amounts of exercise can make a difference no matter how old you are. Exercise has been proven to prevent falls and improve reaction time, brain health, reduced extended periods of screen time, reducing autopilot. We want to make sure we are active and engaged. Time spent alone in the dark, quiet, watching TV, not great for your brain. Plenty of water to keep the body and brain hydrated. Follow a balanced diet, get enough sleep, and don't overcomplicate or do too much. So that's all we have for you today. So we'll do some Q&A.
Oops. I don't see any questions in the chat box yet, but if anyone has one and they want to raise their hand or unmute themselves, please feel free to do that. And let's see.
Beatrice has a question.
Beatrice, you want to unmute? Do you know how to do that? There you go.
Yes. Good afternoon. I was very anxious to really get a better understanding of where I need to be for my age and my physical ability. This was good, very good. I have avoided the HIIT exercise at the community center where it's offered because I just see young people. I'm 81 and I just really moderately exercise now. I really don't do a lot of walking. I used to, but I don't do it now. I just exercise like 3 days a week, a couple of classes those 3 days. And I just am not sure about how I can do some of those things that I never heard of before, such as gaming and exercising. Never, ever even looked at it. I think I heard of Wii. That's been around a while, but I never did it. Don't know anything. So for where I am, and by the grace of God, I have pretty good health and strength. I just don't feel comfortable exercising 5 days a week. Or I guess that's my question. How do I sort of start incorporating some extra things that will like the multitasking? That's something that I have been definitely avoiding. Finding that if I try to do laundry and cook, something is going to either stay too long or burn.
Well, I think what you want to look at is take a look at what you are doing. Look at the guidelines. So you'll have the guidelines and say, okay, am I getting all of the guidelines for what I should be doing, and see, where you can fit in the strength training. Are you getting the strength training? Are you stretching and getting those mobility goals met? Are you getting your heart rate up? And just start with that, and then just add the challenges, the cognitive challenges that Chelsea was talking about, just the basic counting, counting by twos backwards, naming the states as you do exercises, trying to recall information. Just start adding those little cognitive challenges to what you're already doing, so that you're not trying to start something new and throw a whole bunch of concepts on top of it, right? Pick the exercises that you're comfortable doing, that that you're doing properly with proper form, and then just add those little cognitive changes to kind of up the ante on what you're already doing.
Additionally, if you enjoy going to classes 3 days a week and you've just been avoiding the HIIT class because all the young people are going to that one, you can talk to the instructor and ask if they felt comfortable having you in their class. You can ask if there's a class specifically for the 50 and older community. Some gyms offer those classes. And think about modification. Like, you're not going in there to beat the 25-year-olds, you're going in there just to see what it's like. And if the coach is comfortable with that, then if you know your limitations and it's just, changing up altering the motions and keeping your intensity lower, then you can get a good introduction to what a HIIT experience is. Knowing that the trainer is there and speaking with you beforehand will help you feel more confident in that.
Good. The other thing is I used to do water aerobics and I really enjoyed it. It was a really good aerobic workout, but they changed the schedule. And so now I guess I'm looking, you know, just 45 years of working. I don't want to be in a class at 8 o'clock in the morning. I just don't. So I think maybe I'll look for maybe a HIIT class sort of in my time range, and maybe throw in maybe once in a while.
It also doesn't necessarily have to be a HIIT class. A lot of group classes go by timing mechanisms because it's easier with more people involved than counting. So if it's even like a strength and cardio class, or just a lower body class, or an aerobic strength class, it doesn't have to say HIIT as long as there's a work rest interval included in the class.
Oh, I got it. I understand. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Tammy?
I have two questions. I noticed that you didn't mention the word yoga once in your presentations, and I was just curious if you had any thoughts about yoga in particular. And then I have another question, but I'll let you answer the first one.
Yoga falls under that umbrella of our mobility, right? Our ability to move the joints through their full range of motion. But it also falls under the strength category too, because you sometimes get into those end ranges and then you have to hold those end range positions under body weight. So yoga is an excellent resource for achieving mobility goals. And that kind of, it's a good question, because that comes to play in what you're assessing. You're picking something that you can do, that you like, and then that you're going to get some of those flexibility and assessment goals that come up in your kind of personal pyramid, right? So if it's really hard for you to put those socks and shoes on, then mobility is going to need to be one of your goals, and yoga is a great way to achieve that.
Great.
Yoga is also a great way to achieve mindfulness. And for those of us that work in high stress environments or are constantly anxious or stressed, we know that's not good for your brain health either. So for those individuals, yoga might be a great way of understanding your brain, your stress, connectivity to your body, which can help reduce the cortisol levels and the stress on your brain activity and help improve overall brain function for the long term.
Great. Yeah, thank you. And then my second question, I know that we have people from all over the country on this call, and I live in Minneapolis. And about probably 3.5 years ago or so, there was an organization here called OsteoStrong. And I wondered if you knew about OsteoStrong in other areas of the country, and if you had any thoughts about it. I've been going for about 3 years, and you go once a week, and it's 10 minutes, and it's 4 different machines plus the vibe plate on both ends of that. And it's supposed to be specifically for bone density, which is one of my core issues. But it's also, I feel like it's really helping with my posture and my balance, my strength, my endurance. And I wondered if maybe I'm getting some brain benefit too. So I was just curious if you knew anything about it. And yeah, thank you. Very, very interesting presentation, and thank you both.
Thank you. Yeah, there is an OsteoStrong here in New York. A lot of I work directly with a lot of bone health education and clients, and it's great. It's not for everybody. There again, I think there's all these things out there. There's all these tools. There's all these methods and approaches. But it really kind of comes down to the bottom line, which is, what does your body need? What does it say? What is it? How does it move? And what feedback are you getting? And are you checking the boxes off on all of those goals? And those 4 machines, they may be exactly what your assessment of your body needs and calls for. And there's all those elements to it of strength training. I mean, bone density bone building is about loading up the joints and creating the kind of the science behind what our body needs to do to lay down new bone and to build bone and make it stronger. So those machines can be very helpful. And then other people may not respond that well to that kind of a program. So I think it's a great resource. Some people have a great experience with it. Yeah, I think they're growing, but it's definitely a different approach than, so many different other things.
It's a great tool to have in your toolbox of things to do. And if it works for you and you enjoy it, then it's something you should probably continue doing and then supplement the rest of your week with other types of activities to help fill all of those buckets.
We have a couple of questions from Anne. If you don't do Nintendo type games, what other gamification tricks for people 70 and older? And her other question was about water aerobics. Is a water aerobics class for 1 hour considered high intensity if the class doesn't stop during the hour?
Well, I'll take that water aerobics class. I used to teach water aerobics in my days. It's really based off what you get out of it. You just go back to that intensity slide, right? So how do you feel when you're doing that class? If you're rating that at a 8, 9, and a 10, then I say you're targeting that high intensity interval training. And if you're not, then there are ways, talk to the teacher, put gloves on. There are ways to increase the intensity in the pool. So it can provide a great high intensity workout. And again, it just comes down to you asking yourself, how hard am I really working? And that answer needs to be honest with what you feel is hard work. It doesn't have to be the same as the person next to you in the class.
And then the extra gaming portion, not everybody has Nintendo Wii. I don't know if it's actually even popular or fun anymore, but you can also use gaming cards. You can use colored stickers in your kitchen. You can put them on the wall. If you love music, you can, instead of counting or timing yourself, like sing a song while you're doing your exercise. Take rests on the chorus, move on the verses. If you play an instrument, you can play an instrument and then exercise when you're done. Like just changing up the way you do things, not necessarily making it technology based, but some sort of game or multitasking function activity that you enjoy. That's the big part, is that you enjoy doing it. So it doesn't have to be technology. You can do it in lots of ways.
And there's one last question. We are at the top of the hour. On the personal pyramid, it said walk a long distance. What is considered a long distance?
Back to relative intensity. If you don't walk anywhere and you don't leave your apartment, a long distance could be going to the front door. If you walk the circuit of Central Park every day, that's 6 miles. If that's what you do every day, that's not your long distance. So you have to just kind of think about what you do on a day-to-day basis and how you feel doing walking. And if walking to the bus stop is a long way, then that's your long distance. If you walk farther than that, then you can go a little bit farther.
Okay. Well, thank you both. This was wonderful. I learned a lot. I had my knee replaced in March, and it gives me a lot of good ideas as to how to continue. I'm, up to walking a couple miles a day, and now I'll have and still doing those rehab exercises. But
keep the hips strong. Helps.
Keep your hips strong. Glutes.
All about the booty.
Well, thank you so much. And then tomorrow I will send a recap email out with the recording link and our program update, as well as the PDF that Kelyssa and Chelsea are going to share with us that goes with the presentation.
Great.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us and for participating, everyone.
Our pleasure. I'm going to stop our recording if I can find that.